Hello, how is everyone doing? Excellent. I'm assuming those are good whoos. Thank you guys for coming to this session. This is From Data to Dialogue, Communication, Science Solutions in the Marine Debris Space. I am going to briefly give the purpose of this session, and then I'm going to call up to introduce our amazing speakers, which all have very interesting topics, and I'm super excited to hear about. I'm sure you guys are super excited to hear what they have to say as well. So the purpose of this session is to strengthen the connection between science and action, to explore effective strategies through storytelling and community engagement, to inspire dialogue and local solutions. So first up, we have Carson. Woo! Carson is the marketing manager for Stormwater Systems, where he helps communities deploy solutions like the Bandalong litter trap to keep trash out of rivers and streams. With 25 years of experience in marketing and storytelling, he brings a unique perspective to stormwater management by connecting technical solutions with public engagement. Over the past year, Ian has also led the launch of Stormwater Systems' children's education program featuring Detective Brooke and Bandit, designed to inspire the next generation of water stewards. Next up, we have our second speaker, Karl Vilacoba. Karl is the communications director for the Monmouth University Urban Coast Institute and the project manager for the Mid-Atlantic Ocean Data Portal. Prior to joining the UCI, Karl worked for the New Jersey Transportation Planning Authority, where he oversaw a variety of public outreach efforts and served as managing editor of In Transition, a national transportation magazine published in partnership with the New Jersey Institute of Technology. He previously spent a decade as a news reporter, beginning at USA Today's Manhattan Bureau, where he covered several major national stories of the period, including the 9/11 attacks from Ground Zero. He later served as an editor and reporter for a New Jersey Shore area newspaper company, garnering numerous awards from national and statewide press associations for his news writing, editorials, and headlines. A lifelong Shore resident, Karl also serves several years as a member of the Lake Como Environmental Commission and Unified Planning and Zoning Board, helping guide the borough's recovery after Superstorm Sandy. All right, next up we have Dave Jasinski. Dave Jasinski is the vice president of the Green Fin Studio, an environmental communication and community engagement firm based in Richmond, Virginia. Dave has more than 25 years of experience creating engaging and dynamic content to connect with a wide range of governmental, academic, and NGO organizations on complex environmental topics, ranging from stormwater management to climate resilience and riparian buffers. Next, we have Allison Burbach. Allison is the environmental communication manager at Greenfin Studio, where she translates complex environmental issues into clear, compelling stories. She supports a range of client projects, including coordinating collaborative projects, crafting outreach materials, creating data visualizations, and listening to diverse stakeholders. Next up, we have Siena Zisa. And Grace Schleiden. Siena and Grace are undergraduate seniors at Monmouth University studying marine and environmental biology and policy. They work for the Monmouth University Urban Coast Institute. Siena is a research assistant for the Global Ocean Forum and UCI, working on marine policy initiatives tied to the UN Decade of Ocean Science and the COP30 Virtual Ocean Pavilion. Yes, I had that right. It was just so impressive. I was like, there's no way. Okay. Grace is a research assistant for the UCI working on oyster reef restoration in Raritan Bay. They run the Monmouth chapter of the beach cleanup organization Love Blue. I'm sure you guys have seen their wonderful research poster outside of the room. Love Blue was created with a mission of getting communities and college students together to take care of their beaches. Love Blue partners with local businesses and governments to host cleanups and incentivize students to come through giveaways and activities. They collaborate with other organizations on campus, such as sports teams, fraternities and sororities, and other clubs. They have been able to average over 2,000 pounds of trash cleaned up each year. It's amazing. They are excited to showcase how their partnerships have helped reduce marine debris through community-centered outreach. So if I could get another round of applause for these amazing panelists. As you hear, there is a wide variety of topics that are going to be discussed in just a few. So before we get to that, I just want to let you know that this is kind of a two-segment segment. Our presenters are going to be giving their presentations. We're then going to transition into a panel, fireside chat, but we are also going to open up the floor for questions and answers from the audience. So if throughout the presentations, anything comes to mind of interest, follow-up questions, definitely make sure you write them down, take note, so that when we do get to our question and answer portion, we can have go around the room and have those questions readily available. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Ian.
Thank you very much. The last time I was announced on stage, I was in my early 20s, and I was a professional wrestler. So it's been a while since I've gotten up and talked, but I'm still talking trash. So we're here, and I just want to show the picture on the left there is actually of a trap that we just installed this summer in Baltimore, Maryland. We installed it on a Thursday, and this was what we had on Saturday morning. You can imagine that it filled up rather quickly, one storm event, but my name is Ian Carson. I am the marketing manager of Stormwater Systems. We manufacture litter traps that try to prevent litter from getting from the street level to the ocean. So our goal is simple, just to try to stop it before it gets to the ocean. And so what we're talking about is the upstream problem. The upstream problem, all of you know, all of you work in daily, is that 80% of the marine debris originates on land, and it ends up in our rivers and streams and ends up in the ocean. So that's the upstream problem that we're seeing. And how we came up with a solution was not so much of us coming up with a solution as much as we found a gentleman that invented a product called the Bandalong in Australia, and we took that idea and brought it to the United States. We installed our first trap in 2009, but we have multiple solutions. So we have our band-along litter trap, the 320, the 920. Those are much larger traps. They can go up to rivers up to 200 feet wide. We also have our band-along bandit. It does very, very well in smaller creeks and streams. It goes up to about 25, 30 feet wide. We also have our boom system. It's good for contamination control, leakage, and it keeps things contained, let's say that. But it doesn't have the trap device, which creates a centralized cleanout point. We also have our Stormex netting. And I apologize, this one is just a small bit of a sales pitch, but we'll move past that and into the good storytelling here shortly. And so the Stormex is our netting product. It captures things at the end of pipe or in channels, canals, things like that. And so that's the sales pitch. That's our downstream solution. But we've worked with a lot of people. We've worked with municipalities. We've worked with riverkeeper organizations. We've worked with all types of people. A lot of you in this room we've actually worked with, or you've seen our traps in your towns, your cities, and they've done really well. Our latest ones were in Henrico County. I actually met Dina that works with Henrico County at the Virginia Marine Summit this spring, and we installed a bandit this summer. So that was a wonderful connection that we had, and we appreciate them. We've installed a new trap in Brookhaven. That partnership came from the EPA and Microsoft, and they've granted the money to the Chattahoochee Riverkeepers, and they're the ones that will be maintaining it throughout the 10-year contract with them. And so we work with anybody that's willing to put a trap in, and we will help you try to find the best solution to pay for that trap. Sometimes that comes from corporate sponsors. We've seen Micron support traps, Cox Media, and a few others. So you never know where you're going to find the money, but the money is out there, and especially nowadays, you have to find creative sources, corporate sponsors to really help you find that. One of the groups I wanted to talk about was Groundwork Anacostia River, DC. They helped us, there was a lawsuit that happened in DC that caused a need for a trap in the area. The Anacostia River Keepers have been gracious to be the ones cleaning it out now, but in the past, a man named Dennis Chestnut, working with the Anacostia River program, created a green team, which was a youth program. They used at-risk youth, they paid them, and they were able to clean out the traps, make some money on it, but also learn, connect, network. And one of the myths and mythologies that we've heard about is that during one of the cleanouts, one of the youth was actually cleaning it out with a volunteer that was a dean of a college. And through that dean and them working together, he actually got a bit of a scholarship to go to a college. So, I mean, there's those connections between the youth and the corporate world, or there's always a connection with the people that you work with. One of the other groups that we had just learned about was, if I butcher the name of this river, I apologize, but the Woonasquatucket River. It's actually in Rhode Island, and we installed a bandit there. And you can see in the bottom corner that they hire people to clean it out, but they use the high school students to actually categorize and database all of the contents. So it's a really great connection between the high school and the community. And that's really what the story is all about. It's about connecting the youth and the problem, and letting them see what the problem is. And so at Stormwater Systems, this is my third children's book that I've worked on. One was personal, and this was a great one that we decided that we need to create a generational change. Yesterday we were talking about the long game and how you have to play the long game in this environment. You can actually scan the QR code in the corner. I don't know if you can from where you're at, but and it'll take you to a digital version of the book. But it is meant to create a generational change of and using the youth in this character of Detective Brooke and Bandit the raccoon that is a river keeper. And between the two of them, they collect the litter that is in the trap. They track it down, trace it back to where it came from, and then Detective Brooke has a note that she writes on the back and says, this is what we're learning from this situation. So there's a lot to learn. It's about addressing the children, the youth, letting them know that there's a problem. One of the scenes that's in it, and you can see here, is that as an overfilled trash can. That's a pretty common thing if you've ever gone to a sporting event at a ball field or anything like that. The trash can is just filled, and everybody's just kind of tossing their trash next to it or sitting it on top gently, thinking that it's going to last there, and it doesn't. And so there's a lot of those little bitty nuggets of information and ways that we can look at it differently or have the children look at it differently so in the future they can move on and be good stewards of our creation. So when we talk about the children, we also need to talk about how we can do it nationally and how you can be involved as well. And I know most of you are involved with cleanups and things of that sort or groups, but we have to make other people aware of it and get them involved. This is actually our crew. While we're out installing a trap, we're also cleaning up and making sure the area is clean. And, we don't want to leave trash there, but we want it to gather from our traps. So one thing we are doing as a company, we are part of the Great American Cleanup that is happening with Keep America Beautiful, and we encourage everybody to get involved with that. It's as simple as just pledging to say, I'm going to help clean up by a certain amount of trash by next year. And so it's a great initiative. It gets people involved, and it's a good thing on that end. But you also have to go out and talk to your local leaders, and that's where your organizations are doing that. I see a lot of you talking about it, and so that's the lasting impact, is creating legislation that will impact the youth, but also impact the long-term goals of our country. So with that, we have the upstream partnerships for the downstream change. And so all I wanted to do with this picture, there's a reason I put it up here, two reasons actually. One is it shows that our product is amazing and it works well. I can't help but say that. But two, I wanted to use it as a metaphor, that on one side is all this trash and litter and woody debris. There's a lot of problems on this side. But if you look on the other side, and it's not a Photoshop picture or anything, it truly is that way, is how clean the water is and how nice it looks. And so between the litter and the clear water stands the community, and that's where we have to build up that community from a youth and help them grow and learn about these problems as they arise. So with that, I was actually pretty quick. So I know most of you are running out of here, but I want you to stick around for our question and answers. We have quite a few panels here, but please reach out to me. Also, this picture, I have a sticker of a similar picture, but this is Anton with the Lower Raritan River project, and so he's a great guy, and it's a great picture. So thank you very much.
I'm going to just go back for 2 seconds in case anyone wanted to write down that information. Something that really stood out to me about this presentation was the importance of connection, not just with communities, but also generations. So thank you for your presentation, Ian. Next up, we have Karl. Thank you, Karl.
Thank you. Okay. Again, I'm Carl Vilacoba. I am the Communications Director for Monmouth University's Urban Coast Institute, which is located about a mile from the beach in West Long Branch, New Jersey. And I work helping manage the Mid-Atlantic Ocean Data Portal. This is probably the least marine debris focused presentation that you've seen yet, but what I'm going to cover here is more about how we use the portal for storytelling and outreach and engagement purposes. And I think everything I have to say here is really applicable to anyone who uses GIS, which I think is probably just about everybody here, if not everyone, in one way or another. So this here is a picture of me and my son David from a few years ago when I had a little bit darker of hair. And that day we were out at World Market and he saw this little globe and just thought it was the coolest thing. So I bought it for him and we brought it home and it was bedtime. And we're sitting there and he's spinning it around and looking at it and asking questions like, Daddy, how do they decide where one country ends and the other begins? And Daddy, what are these bumpy areas on the globe? And we talked for a bit, and I just let him have at it. And about a half hour later, boom. And I think David is trying to tell us something here, which is that maps just have this magic way of drawing people in, right? They have a way of telling stories, and they have a way of starting conversations. And on the basis of that, all kinds of good things are possible. Marco has a lot of maps. And for those who haven't been on the portal and don't know a lot about it, there is the URL. And we've currently got about 6,000 different maps that show all kinds of things, from marine life to marine debris to maritime uses that you can turn on one at a time or in combinations together, all organized under about a dozen categories or themes. And there's also a lot of really great tools for people to collaborate with each other, educational resources. The portal is currently maintained by Monmouth, where I sit, along with Rutgers, Duke University. The New York State Department of State is kind of a state voice on our technical team, and our developer EcoTrust out of Oregon, all working under the guidance of Marco. Now, the other day, I was on the West Virginia DOT website looking for something on the GIS side, and I want you to pay attention to the breadcrumbs up there, where it shows how I got to their mapping page. And as you can see there, I was on the transportation homepage, clicked on Information Technology Division, then to GIS. That brought me to this maps page, where half of what you see here were just broken links. Some of them you couldn't even click. If you look close, the HTML is melting down on it and hovering over it, as if the site got redesigned, but somebody forgot about this page. And, not trying to pick on West Virginia, lived there 4 years, let's go Mountaineers. But this is actually fairly typical of a lot of people and agencies and organizations that have really great GIS tools, but they wind up burying them way down in the innards of their website, where only the most determined county engineers will ever find them. But Marco has always felt that GIS and portals can do more. And we've used them for everything from helping build trust among groups that are essential for Marco's ocean planning work. As a non-biased, neutral information source, the portal is a unique tool for outreach. Looking at maps helps simplify ocean planning for all audiences, no matter how much sophistication they have on the different topics or not. And they help keep people to the table and engaged and excited about the work that Marco is doing. I think it's probably fair to say that Marco has a more robust communications program behind the portal than most GIS tools do. And it really starts right here with this blog page where it's full of articles. Anytime that you come to the portal and you click on this page, you can find these stories that will help tell you what the new latest tools and data are and how you use them, how they were created, where they came from. And it's a great way to really just keep tabs if you are a regular user or if you haven't checked on it in a while of what's new and what's good. We have a semi-monthly webinar series that we call How Tuesday, where people can take deep dives into the latest data. And Ocean Stories, really unique product that we have here. It is basically, I would describe it as a kind of a homebrew story map meets digital magazine type feature, where as you scroll down, that map up top will change to help explain what you're reading about in the story, and the story will help explain the things that you're seeing in the map. And it's a really great way to just tell the stories in data about some of the people who make their livelihoods at sea or have strong connections to it. Being in Delaware, I'm going to use a Delaware example, and that was this one where I did an interview and profile with Chief Coker of the Lenape of Delaware, and he told me all about how when he was young, he would come here to Dewey and to Rehoboth, love the beach, what the ocean has historically meant to his people, and what ocean issues really resonate the most to him. And so it's a really unique way to help people see themselves in the data. We also, on the portal, maintain a few social media arms that are independent of Marco's main ones. So we have a Twitter, we did just join Blue Sky, and we've got our own YouTube, which the How Tuesdays go on, and other instructional content. And we have our own newsletter that we distribute through Constant Contact, where any registered user will be on that list, or people who just want to sign up for it and keep tabs on what the newest stuff on the portal is. The genesis of a lot of the communications work we do really goes back to the Mid-Atlantic Regional Ocean Action Plan when that was being drafted. For those who have been in this room and been with us long enough, you may remember some of these things, but at that time, it was really of utmost importance to get as much community input and input from all the different stakeholders out there on the plan and some of the ideas behind it. And around that time, we actually commissioned Monmouth University's Polling Institute to do a survey of some of the sectors that had been involved with the ocean plan and showing up at all the meetings. And I just want to highlight the ones that I have circled here, that all three of them rated highest of all of these that you see on the list. And I think it's noteworthy that you see commercial, government, nonprofit, especially commercial and nonprofit. Some of the NGOs at that time didn't necessarily see eye to eye on all of the things that were being discussed, but everybody agreed that developing a data portal of marine life and human and commercial activity was a really important thing worth pursuing. And I should add, looking down there, marine debris did pretty good too, especially if you look at the right, no affiliation that really represents best just general members of the public. 70% rated developing a regional strategy for marine debris reduction as something they strongly approve of. And with that kind of approval for the portal, it makes sense that you would put that at the front door of all of your communications efforts. And that's literally what we did. And in those days, we started putting tables right basically near the check-ins when people would come to these events, to the hearings that we were having, where we would have the portal out. And it was a great conversation piece, a way for people to stop by and take a look at some of the data, to find out about the plan a little bit and learn a little more about Marco. And we even, around that time, were doing kiosks on the beach and the boardwalks, in places in town where I would hand out flyers and say, hey, come out tonight. We're having this meeting. We want to hear from you. We want you to be involved. And again, just looking at maps was a great way to help people learn a little more about it and get hooked into it. And we really carried that forward ever since then. And here's just a few images where on the left I'm doing a demo for a community group. In the center, that's at the Submerged Marine Science Festival in New York City. Community events like that where we can set up tables, people can learn about Marco, learn about the portal, kids stop by and learn about it. It's just, conferences, any way that we can to help expose the work that we're doing and help people learn about ocean issues. And we've been very gratified to see all of the growth among educational users of the portal. It has really grown more and more as a classroom tool, right on down to even elementary and middle schools. We've done a lot of great work partnering with the New York Aquarium, where I'll do a training once a year or so with teachers from New York City who are getting professional development credits. They come all day and they'll learn about the Hudson Canyon or whatever issues that the WCS is working on at the moment. And we've seen a whole lot of growth of use from doing this. And it's really kind of forced us to and kept us on our toes to make sure that everything that we're doing on the portal is very simple so that a general audience, even a fifth grader, can come on here and guide through it and click on layers and get through it with some ease. And to that end, we've also recently released a mobile app, which is basically a stripped-down version of the portal's web app, which we call Marine Planner, so that if you're on the beach or if you're on a boat and you want to look at a map, you can just call that up right easy on your phone. You don't need a good laptop or a tower computer on your desk. And I want to give a shout out to somebody who's done some really great work using the portal for marine debris communication, Cynthia. These are a few slides of her, which I stole graciously, and thank you, showing just some of the outreach that she's been doing to community groups to emphasize the point that using the marine debris layers, and Virginia, I think you showed these and talked a little about them earlier as well, where you can click on these kind of isolated beach areas where cleanups have been done and get this pop-up with stats for every season going back to 2018, at least fall and spring, where people can look and find out how many balloons were found during these beach sweeps and other litter. And so just being able to do that in a meeting with people who may not necessarily know or believe the extent of the problem, you can show, because seeing is believing, that there is a problem when you click on this and see 3,000 balloons were found in just this mile or so of beach in a couple of years. And the last image I just want to leave you with is me at the Virginia Aquarium a few years ago. And that kid's face right there, I love that. That is the moment that he discovered that you could use the portal to find out what sharks live in your neighborhood. And that is what I call mappiness. And who are we to deprive these children of that great feeling? And so I would just say, in closing, embrace GIS. It's not just something for analysis and technicians. It's really a great tool for storytelling and engagement. And thank you very much.
Thank you for that. I think something that really stood out to me about your presentation was the data mapping tool. As someone who is a non-scientist and relatively new to the environmental space, I genuinely do find the tool actually very exciting and engaging. So I think that it's really important that we have resources like these that meet people where they are in terms of their environmental knowledge. All right, next up we have Greenfin Studios. And Allison, thank you.
It's a little sketchy. Okay, let's see if this will work. All right, thanks. Hello, everyone. So at Greenfin Studio, we specialize in environmental communication and community engagement. We're all scientists by training, but we bring different things to the table like communication expertise, graphic design experience, skills, and strategic thinking to really bridge the gap between science and broader understanding. And so we tackle a wide range of communication, environmental communication topics with a wide range of audiences. So many of these issues aren't very obvious in daily life, like what we're talking about today. They might be out of sight, out of mind, or something that happens on really slow timescales, so people just don't see it happening with their own eyes. But they still all affect communities in very real ways. So that's where effective storytelling comes in. So our job is to make the unseen seen and to help people not just understand the data, but why it matters to them and what they can do about it. So for a while, there was this prevailing belief in the information deficit model where if people just knew about the issue, they would care and they would take action. But however, that's just not the case, unfortunately. More information doesn't necessarily mean more action. Communication must go beyond just educating and find ways to connect with your target audience and include a clear call to action for them to take that next step. Your effort should aim to target people's emotions, tell stories, and really target your marketing to drive the desired behavior change. To do this, the first thing you need to do is know your audience. Who is your audience? What do they care about? What motivates them or drives their work? And what are you asking them to do? You often have multiple audiences you're trying to talk to at once. It could be community members, it could be watermen or farmers, it could be policymakers, students. And you're often trying to talk to them at multiple audiences at once. Everybody wears a lot of hats, so who you're talking to, they could be viewing things from multiple angles. But something to remember is that the science behind your work doesn't have to change. You don't need to dumb it down. You just need to tailor the relevance of that science based on what your audience values and cares about. So the things that might keep us up at night are not what keeps a lot of people up at night. So our environmental and ecological concerns shouldn't be the main selling point of your messaging. To get your audience to care about an issue, you need to speak to them in terms of what's important to them. So that could be human health and safety. It could be the economy, infrastructure, jobs, education. For example, marine debris pollution is what we're all talking about here today. But your seafood-loving coastal resident might care more if their next crab cake sandwich had some plastic in it. Or the county board of supervisors might be more inclined to take action if you talk to them about the economic impacts of dirty beaches on tourism revenue. Storytelling is a key way that we target emotions and make environmental issues less invisible. Our brains are literally hardwired for it. When you hear a story, you engage the brain in a way that's similar to you actually experiencing it firsthand, and so you're more likely to commit it to memory. Additionally, we are more likely to form an emotional connection when we hear about an individual story or a local story, over hearing just a large statistic that we can't really comprehend. So in this example, the visual storytelling is pretty clear that this poor turtle has been stuck in that plastic for a long time, and that it must not be living its best life. How could you? But on the other hand, a big statistic like this, 100,000 animals dying from plastic each year, is a little bit difficult to comprehend. I mean, how many animals is that? Would they fill this room? You can't really picture that many animals. When you do have data or complex processes to convey, visualizations are your friend. Conceptual diagrams and infographics help visualize these invisible things that are going on around us. And if you can visually show your data and make it important for people without a whole lot of words, you're instantly connecting with a more general audience. One of my personal favorite ways to tell stories with data are with equivalencies. So that's taking your big incomprehensible numbers and turning it into a better, often more fun comparison that people can really connect with. So in this example, we were trying to convey that between 9 and 16 billion gallons of sewage enter Philadelphia's waterways every year. That's a lot. When we're talking about large volumes of liquid, you might think, oh, should we talk in Olympic-sized swimming pools? But that would be about 24,000 Olympic swimming pools. And like, do we even know how big those are? Has anyone been in one? It's not something that people can comprehend. Instead, we went local. And there's nothing more local and important to Philly than the Eagles. So that much sewage could fill the Eagles Stadium 15 times. Tying data to something that people already cared about can make the message unforgettable. So now I'm going to talk about a few case studies and recent projects that we completed to kind of show these in action. So first up was a video series we did with the Mid-Atlantic Coastal Acidification Network on ocean acidification. And the goal here was to teach middle and high school students about the causes, impacts, and the solutions for coastal and ocean acidification. The challenge here is obviously that ocean acidification, you can't see it. You can't even feel it. You're not going to stick your toe in the water and feel a little sizzle. So, it's a chemically complex thing. The pH scale is not your typical scale. And so we chose to do short videos with graphics and animations, a touch of humor, and feature the experiences of real people who ocean acidification is impacting. And as of a few weeks ago, I checked the number of views on these videos, and it's about over 2,000. So these are being used in classrooms all over. So there's 4 videos in the series, and they're each between 5 and 7 minutes long. So a good short clip to play in the classroom. So the first video just kind of overviews how carbon dioxide from the atmosphere impacts the ocean. It has impacts on the food chain, and therefore your local seafood economy. And the video ends by talking about solutions that the students can take to protect and preserve oceans from future acidification. Video 2 digs into challenges ocean acidification poses for local seafood growers and commercial fishermen. And then video 3 discusses the impacts of acidification on oysters and seagrass. And then the final videos explain some of the technology that's going on and some of the research to help pull some of that carbon out of the ocean and what other solutions students can take. And then all of these videos also have Spanish subtitles, which is a nice feature to help reach a broader audience. So we created various graphics and animations to put in the first video to help explain some of these complex processes. So in the first one here, just how human actions on land are actually affecting the ocean. That's not maybe a connection that is intuitive for a lot of younger students. And so this other graphic helps visualize some of the species that we can't see, like phytoplankton, and how it impacts them, which then trickles up down the food web. People, if they can't see it in the water, they might not even believe that it exists. So making it a little cute graphic and showing it in context with the whole food chain is just a helpful visual for people. We also did some humor in these videos. We worked with a wonderful actress to craft an engaging narrative, with humor and some jokes here and there, and lots of costumes. So that's just a fun way to keep them engaged throughout the story. I didn't put it in here, but there's one where she has a monocle and a top hat, and she's the Industrial Revolution, which is one of my faves. We also featured a lot of testimonials throughout the videos to drive the narrative from people experiencing both the effects and the solutions of ocean acidification firsthand, like our commercial fishermen and seafood growers. They shared how they've noticed changes firsthand, from having to fish in different waters or, noticing fewer yields year over year. So I think their experience and 20 years in the industry really bring a lot of credibility to the issue. And then we also featured educators and researchers who are working to understand ocean acidification and educate others about the issue. And their voices are really important to bring kind of the hopeful element to the story, that there are people out there working to solve these problems and developing solutions that benefit us all. The next example is something we've already heard about today, but working with VIMS on their TRAP program. So we are supporting their communications effort for the project to just help amplify the work that VIMS and all of the project partners are doing. And the challenge with this effort is that derelict crab traps are hidden, they're under the water, we can't see them, and they're largely unquantified. One of the project partners in Maine estimates there could be 13 million derelict traps in the Gulf of Maine. I mean, that's not a number that I could even comprehend. And so our multifaceted approach to this communication includes things like infographics, which you've already seen a sneak peek of, highlighting the partners through blog posts, having data displayed on a dashboard, and social media. So one of the first infographics we saw a need for was kind of just the life cycle of a derelict trap. There are a lot of misconceptions and a bit of mystery behind how traps become derelict and then what happens to them underwater, how they move around. Some people have a misconception that the fishermen are making them derelict on purpose. That just doesn't really make sense when you think about the economics of it. They're not going to throw away their $100 trap just for fun. And then other people don't think derelict traps are that big of an issue because, they have the escape vents. But as I've learned talking to all the groups, they pull them up and they're covered in mud, so they're not functional, or they're biofouled over, so they're not functional, or they're buried in the sediment. So this graphic just helps visualize that invisible process going on underwater and answer some of those questions and kind of hope to overcome some of the misconceptions. Another set of infographics that we made were for each trap type to provide kind of an at-a-glance overview of the fishery. And so we illustrated each trap type and crab species being retrieved through the trap program, included the common bycatch species, the economic value each year for the harvest value, and how the traps are commonly retrieved. And so these graphics can help educate various different stakeholders about the impacts of derelict fishing gear. So again, like we talked about, targeting your audience. If you're talking to a policymaker about this issue, pointing to that economic value could be really persuasive. I had the pleasure of speaking with all the project partners over the past few months to hear their stories about their removal efforts, their successes and their challenges, and they shared so many great photos that show how much work goes into these efforts, and it's really amazing. One of my favorite pictures is this one for Delaware Sea Grant. You can just kind of hopefully see the trap. It's caked in mud. It probably weighs 200 pounds, and it's taking 3 people to haul out. You can just see them working so hard. And so we took all the information that we got from our interviews and wrote up blog posts on each partner to help tell their unique stories. And one thing that I love to highlight was all the different methods they're using to recover traps. So you have scuba divers braving the murky, freezing cold waters in Maine, and then the divers enjoying the nice warm waters in Florida. And then a group in California were using kayaks, which, wow, that must take a lot of abs to be able to have your kayak covered in traps and then kayak them back to the boat. One of my favorite photos, I already said that. And then we also, on these profiles, created kind of a summary of their efforts to date. And so we put how many traps they'd recovered, some of the methods they used, the common bycatch, just another thing that they can use and take to show their stakeholders, their community members, the work that they're doing. And again, with data storytelling, this was the stats for the whole program as of a few weeks ago at the end of October. And so they recovered just around 7,000 traps across the 10 different groups. And that came out to around 300,000 pounds, or about 150 tons. So I love my equivalencies, so I got 2 more for you. So if you lined up all of those recovered traps end to end, it's about 3 miles. So think about that when you're running your Thanksgiving turkey trot this year. That's how long they would be lined up. And then for the weight, 150 tons, that's about the size of an adult blue whale. So you can just picture these people by hand, sometimes with a grapple hook, pulling up an entire blue whale out of our waters. So I just love my equivalencies. All right. I think we're going to move on to the next. Thank you.
I absolutely love those visuals. I was like, ooh, wow. And I was like, who is that woman in those videos? I was hoping you were going to play one of the videos because it looks so interesting. All right, next up we have Grace and Siena.
Hello, my name is Grace Schleiden. I'm the Vice President of the Love Blue Monmouth chapter.
And hello everyone, my name is Siena Zisa. I'm the President of Love Blue this year, and we are just here to tell you about our student-run beach cleanup club and what's been going on lately. So by 2050, there will be more plastic in the ocean, or more plastic in the oceans than there will be fish. And this is something at Love Blue that we mention in front of almost all of our cleanups chapter-wide, because it is such an insane fact that really does get people thinking about it, and it's easily digestible and definitely gets a reaction. I know I don't have to explain this to any of you guys, but every piece of plastic and trash that enters our ocean does pose a threat to biodiversity, to marine life, to human health, and just to our livelihoods in general. And I think, what can we do about it? So we are Love Blue. We are a 501c nonprofit. We were founded by a group of ocean lifeguards and surfers in Wildwood Crest, New Jersey in 2019. And you guys have all shared some lovely science and solutions for these problems, but we're here to talk about our own mini success story of the Monmouth Love Blue chapter. Quickly, our Love Blue has evolved into, sorry about that, I think we're missing a slide. Anyway, quickly, Love Blue has evolved into 7 college chapters and over 6 community chapters, hosting over 57,000, or taking over 57,000 pounds of trash from our waterways over these past years since our founding, as well as having 120,000 hours of community service combined since 2019. We at Monmouth have had great success with our Love Blue Club since our personal founding in 2021, and over these past 4 years, we've been able to clean up thousands of pounds off of our local beaches, all thanks to our amazing community. And we couldn't do any of what we do without our wonderful partners. So we're so lucky to have these amazing partners that support our chapter's mission, especially such as our local businesses, especially ones that students know and love. They generously provide us with gift cards, merchandise, and events like beach yoga post-cleanups. And lately we've been implementing something new at our cleanups that's been really fun, is we tell everyone to look for the coolest piece of trash that they could find. And there are no rules as to what this coolest piece of trash may be, which makes it really interesting. We've had anything from flip phones to an entire soccer goal post to a fire extinguisher. So you never really know what you're gonna get. And I think it makes it really fun for students to try to compete and see what they can really find out there and see, why is this stuff even here? It's very strange that it ends up on our beaches. We also couldn't do any of what we do without our local governments. We're very excited and honored to work with Deal, which is a town right by us. And we host most of our cleanups over there. They're extremely kind and supportive of our mission. And it is a mutual benefit as they get clean beaches and happy locals especially, and we get a great place to host our cleanups. And lastly, we work with on-campus organizations, which is a big pull for us. Nearly all of our cleanups have a collaboration with some sort of fraternity, sorority, club, sports team, whatever that may be. It allows us to foster ocean stewardship for people who might not really be in that field. And if we can get 60-something frat guys to clean up the beach at 10 a.m. on a Saturday, we think that we're doing something right. So it's been really great. And at Monmouth, as Carl mentioned, a huge selling point of ours is that we are 1 mile from the Jersey Shore. So we say, if we're going to be so close and we're going to use this as such a wonderful thing of ours, we have to take care of it. We have to make sure that it's still beautiful and wonderful. So I think that showing the students the gravity of the pollution problem really gets them to recognize what's happening even in their own community and want to contribute to this change. We've heard from students how much fun they have at our cleanups, which is so wonderful to hear. They say that Love Blue is their favorite community service that they do around by us, which we're very honored to say, but walking along the beach and finding strange things with your friends and afterwards having a fun activity or a prize to win has been really rewarding for them, they've told us, and we're really excited to be a part of that. So without our students, our small governments, and our local businesses, we really couldn't do any of the things we do, and together we get to lessen the debris in our community by each contributing part, and I think that's what makes Love Blue so special to us.
So thanks to our partners, we have had a rapid growth over the past 4 years. This increase in student involvement has been reflective in the amount of trash we're able to clean up. So in 2024, we cleaned up 735 pounds of trash. Compared to this year, we're at 1,043 pounds of trash. So it's been really cool. Me and Siena have been involved in Love Blue since we were freshmen, so we've really seen this growth firsthand. and it's been really inspiring. So when we host cleanups, we get two different types of students. We have the students who are already environmentally conscious, they want to be involved, they're super excited about it. And I think sometimes a huge blind spot we have with those students is we're so focused on awareness and action that we don't really give them hope for the future. And so sometimes that can result in them giving up. So I think we really need to make sure that we cater to those students as well. And doing through our beach cleanups, we can do that. They get to see firsthand the local beaches that they love getting cleaned up, so that's really important. And then on the other side of the spectrum, we have the other students who don't know as much about conservation. They might not be really interested in it. We have business majors, we have computer science majors, but through this, they get to see firsthand just how bad the trash problem is. And I think that's really important to a big part of this field, a huge strength, is being able to explain the urgency of conservation to people who aren't inherently interested in that topic. So the benefit of this cleanup is really to bring awareness to those people. And cleaning up and seeing firsthand why all of this can help them think more about the plastics they use and where they throw them away. So some things we're looking into the future. Oh, wrong way. Looking into the future, we want to really keep this momentum going by combining our current effective strategies like incentives and giveaways to engage the Monmouth community. So we're going to do this by fostering existing relationships we have with sponsors. So coming up, we are hosting a cleanup with Jetty Rock. If you don't know who they are, they're another nonprofit organization. They hold cleanups, events. They have all kinds of internships. So we're hosting that with our surf club and our Marine Bio Club. So through that, our sponsors get exposure. They also get a lot of involvement from the students in their different programs. And this helps us get a lot more support from them. And then another approach we are taking is hosting mental health centered events following cleanups. I'm sure everybody in this room knows how beneficial being outside is for your mental health, how clear your head feels afterwards. So we've been working with Dr. Morgan Delaney, a psychology professor and board certified therapist at Monmouth University. She specializes in ecotherapy, and we're working with her to host events after our cleanups to really help the students get thinking about the environment. These events are centered around the idea that being outside can really help recenter you and reset your attention span, which can help you in your work life, in your personal life, with productivity, and it really helps reduce burnout. More specifically, some of the events that we're thinking of hosting are meditation sessions, paddleboarding, and we've had yoga classes in the past. This again really helps students to see the value in the nature while also offering a fun activity. And then our last idea that we're probably most excited about is having self-service cleanup stations along the beach. So Monmouth University has this set of apartments along the beach. So we're going to put in a little shed that has buckets, gloves, grabbers, and then students can go in there whenever they want and clean up the beach on their own. So this really helps us expand our outreach without having to put in as much effort. And by adding these new ideas to our existing strategies, we hope to engage the students more while simultaneously cleaning up more marine debris. If you like what you heard and you want to help us out, we're currently crowdfunding, so here's the QR code for that. But really what I want to leave you with is the emphasis on making sure that you couple whatever action and awareness programs you have with also hope and success stories to make sure that you don't lose the students who are already like the environment and are already into conservation.
All right, you heard what they said, fund them. Fund them. All right, thank you guys so much for all of your presentations. We have about 30 minutes left, which is great, excellent. So we're going to go into our panel discussion and our audience Q&A. I think I'm going to do a few questions with panel and then open up to the audience because I'm sure there's a lot of questions and I want to leave ample time for your questions as well. So my first question, and Allison, I think I may kind of put the target on your back to kind of be the first one to respond to this one. But by all means, anyone that has a response, feel free to contribute. But data tells us what's happening, but stories reveal why it matters. How do you strike the right balance between scientific accuracy and the emotional connection of your work? No pressure.
Yeah, so like we were talking about, you don't need to dumb down the science. I think that's the approach people try to take, is to make it as easily understandable, but you don't have to do that to be an effective communicator. But I think something that I would use an example of is to humanize the science. So when you're pairing the voices of people that are actually impacted, like the watermen, the community scientists that are out there working, or students, is a really great way to bridge the gap between like what's happening out there and how people are feeling about it. I think it's nice to connect with somebody else, either on screen or in a written up story. Yeah, Dave, do you have anything to add?
I kind of think that's a non-issue. I kind of think that the only way that you are going to engage with audiences is to humanize the science. And I think that, yeah, unless you're making those connections, there's really no point in doing any communication. So I do think that, and I don't think that there's really any danger. No scientist is going to go out and on a limb and say things that aren't true. They just have to find ways that to say them in ways that are engaging and make those connections.
And I know something that was mentioned in the presentation, and I think Allison, you said this, was tailoring basically your materials to your audience and I guess the community that you're trying to communicate with. For anyone, open to anyone, what have been maybe some challenges in terms of understanding and researching the communities that you guys try to communicate with before you create those materials? Feel free.
Yeah, I think that the biggest challenge is when we work with clients who want to do a communications campaign and they want to make connections and they want to talk about a certain issue or change behaviors, is their understanding that this is not just, we're going to just do a fact sheet and boom, magic's going to happen, right? Because unless you really take the time and unfortunately have to spend some money to do the investigative work, to what do our audiences want to know, what are their questions, how do they like to be engaged, it's not money well spent. So, so helping them come to the understanding that it's more than just glossy brochures or cute catchphrases or things like that, but help them to understand that they need to put the audience first before any communication is done, or an understanding of the audience.
I like that.
I would also just add, another thing that we do at Greenfen that I didn't touch on too much was just stakeholder engagement. And so when we approach that, we try to think about all of the stakeholders that you could have. But I think sometimes when you're thinking about like the diversity of your stakeholders, sometimes it's harder to reach different populations. If you're having a community meeting on a weeknight, you might alienate families because they have to be home, putting the kids to bed. But if you're doing it during the daytime, those are the people that are working. And so you have to be really intentional with your stakeholder outreach and and the ways that you're going about it to make sure you're hearing from all of the voices that are at the table. They just might, have other priorities that would prevent them from, really being invested in ways that we wish they were.
Thank you. I think that's a good segue into my next question, which is about community engagement. What advice would any of you guys offer to ensure community engagement goes beyond just simply raising awareness, the cute catchphrases like that was just mentioned, and actually empowers communities to take ownership of local marine debris challenges in their community?
As somebody that is trying to sell a product, we sell it into a community, but everyone always asks us, are you the ones that clean it out? And we always say, no, because we like it to be community involved. We're selling this trash trap into your creeks and streams. We live in Georgia, it's not affecting us, and we could probably hire a crew that just runs out there, cleans it up. But if you're not getting involved as the community and as the community group, and you're not spreading awareness and education around that, then there's no change. There's no future change. And so as for us, we're always trying to connect, like I was saying, I probably went over rather quickly in my speech was that, we worked with the Anacostia River Keepers, we worked with Groundwork, we've worked with all these different groups to try to connect them with the person purchasing the trap so that it can be community-led. And then we also have signs on our trap that we want the community to be able to see and understand, and it builds a audience around it and not just a cleanup act. So.
Carl.
I'm actually going to take Love Blue as an example of this, because I've actually participated in a couple of their cleanups, and I brought my daughter to one of them once, and the experience of her coming out and picking up trash off the beach changed her. I think we've gone to the beach, who knows how many times. It's a big thing for our family, but she never really looked at trash on the beach the same. She may not have ever really noticed it in a major way, but now she gets very frustrated, and it really took having that experience of coming out with you guys and going through it for herself to really now understand the problem and want to do something. It made an environmentalist out of her.
I think making sure that the community feels like they're being included in the solution. I think the term parachute scientist was used in a presentation earlier today, and I think that's an extremely valid point. We're working on several projects in Hampton, Virginia right now in terms of flooding resiliency, and the first step in it is talking to the community and understanding what their lived experience is with flooding, and making sure that they understand that moving forward, any proposed, and there's not going to be any solutions in that area for flooding, but there's going to be ways, strategies to make life more livable, and in making sure that they know that they're involved in the conversation and have agency to make decisions, and then not just paying lip service to that, but demonstrating to them that here's what we heard, and here's what we're doing. And what do you think? And is this a go or no go? And constantly involve them in the process.
I would build off of that and just saying it's building relationships. It's not just these one-off, you ask them, 10 questions in a 1-hour interview. You really have to go back and show them what came of the work, or continually involve them in improving the water plan, for example. And I think another thing that I would say was celebrating the success stories, just really trying to highlight the good stories when you have them. I think for the trap removals, it's great news that these are coming out of the water, so it's something that's positive. And like with cleanups too, advertising the pounds of trash that are being pulled out to help highlight the local success and empower others to want to get involved.
Yeah, I just want to echo sort of what Carl said. I think a big strength for us, at least, is just working so locally with businesses, with the community. We have it easy because we're at a university, so there are plenty of people who would love to get involved. All these clubs and fraternities and sororities who some have to do community service, some don't, but we found it's a really great way just for those groups to get out and sort of interact with each other, to bond, and also to have a sort of shared goal. And I think when you're cleaning up the beach and you find an entire empty 12-pack of Budweiser as a college student, you're like, oh man, this is a problem. And if you're not really looking for it, sometimes they don't necessarily see it. So I think even just getting them out there in the start, having an incentive of a gift card or something simple like that, an activity, something that gets them to think beyond just, oh, we got to go out and clean the beach. I think having that combination there gets them to care more, and in the future they continue to have that mindset.
And on that note, before I guess, transition to audience questions, I have one more question about youth. I know in multiple presentations we talked about youth engagement. I feel it's only appropriate to discuss social media. So social media heavily shapes how the public engages with environmental issues, especially amongst youth and younger generations. How do you foresee us using these platforms to keep marine debris and ocean stewardship in the public consciousness?
I think that a lot of the youth already has like a good awareness of what's going on. I mean, I can remember Reduce, Reuse, or Recycle ever since elementary school. We've been having those kinds of campaigns. So I think really focusing on the empowerment again, and I think that it'll just naturally kind of come into social media, but I think that we can kind of make it go faster into social media by highlighting the success stories, because I feel like a lot of times people our age, since we've heard so much of it, it's like a lot of doom and gloom, and I think we need to highlight the success stories more to make sure that those people aren't giving up on their local environments.
I think social media is here regardless of your thoughts about it. And yes, it's got good parts and it's got bad parts, but I think if you're in the business of trying to get your message out there, you got to use every tool in the toolbox, and that's one of them. But I was having a conversation with Janet earlier today, and they're going to use video games, and so because that's how a certain demographic is engaging, and so you take advantage of everything that you can.
Thank you. I'm going to open the floor now. We have about 15 minutes left. If there's anyone with any questions for any of our panelists, please raise your hand so our mic persons can thank you. And when you speak, if you don't mind just introducing yourself, maybe your affiliation, and just make sure that you're speaking clearly in the mic so we can all hear you. Thank you.
Hi, great panel to end the day on. I'm Chloe McKenna. I spoke earlier. I had a quick question for Greenfin Studio. Just for those videos, again, I also wanted to see, like Aiyana said, some of those videos, they look really cool from the screen grabs you had. How are you working with both formal and informal educators to get those out to different and diverse groups of students, but also like adult volunteers and through adult education programs? Are you working with like the National Marine Educators Association or other groups like that?
I'll leave that to Janet to answer.
So, good eye, Chloe. Those are our Mid-Atlantic Coastal Acidification Network videos that we did with Greenfin did with us. I should really say they get the majority of the credit. Those videos are one of my favorite projects that I worked on with Maycan, and not to hijack this about acidification or anything, but so we have promoted those through the National Marine Educators Foundation. We have them on our website. I personally use them in the classes that I teach. I teach at a community college, so I use those in my environmental sustainability class. We have incorporated them into a curriculum for our not K through 12, but high school students that was created this year. Greenfin has shared them on their website and their social media, and we're actually open for suggestion if anybody has any other suggestions on how we can share them. Oh, I will also say Frances McFarland, who was here earlier with New York DEC, has used them in teacher training. They've been, I'm just trying to think of all of the different ways that we've promoted them, but mostly through social media, and they're on YouTube. Yeah, that's what I can think of for right now. But I was going to raise my hand for a comment anyway to say that I think everybody in this room could come up with a project that Greenfin could do an amazing job on, because working with them, they really forced myself as a scientist and the other scientists that they interviewed to not use jargon. And I can't tell you how many times I practiced describing what pH is without using jargon and describing it in a way. And I can't tell you how many times Dave stopped me and said, no, sorry, try again. And I think they can draw it out of you. So if you're struggling with communicating something, you guys bring out the best in us. So that's my pitch for Greenfin.
Well, gosh. Well, that's wonderful. A lot of things from that, though. The question about promoting what's being done and making sure that people hear about it. You can develop the most awesome video in the world or the most awesome fact sheet or infographic or something like that, but unless you have a plan to get it out there, what's the point? Because you could have the most awesome thing sitting on your website, gathering dust that no one knows about. That so you have to make sure that that's part of it. And then just as a offshoot of these videos, Allison mentioned that we worked on one of the videos with a actress to personify ocean acidification and act as sort of the Bill Nye type host. I highly recommend, if you're struggling on a communication project or want to engage people in new ways, hire a creative. We hired Eva to help us with it, and we consider ourselves creative. She came at it from 180 degrees and was coming up. She was putting googly eyes on oyster shells and using a sponge to mop up, CO2 in the ocean and everything like that. We were like, holy moly, where's this coming from? But I mean, it is engaging, and it's a fun way to just, again, you're not getting away from the facts, you're not getting away from the data, you're coming at it from 180 degrees and just finding fun new ways of getting that information out there.
There is a question. Oh, you had another question here.
Thank you guys so much. This is a great conversation. And I have two things. First of all, for Love Blue, I love what you guys are doing. I do think you're selling yourself short, that saying that you have it easy because you're on a campus. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit, especially about your partnerships with businesses and how you have seen that be successful in getting a larger turnout. Because, we all know that people love gamifying things and love free stuff, but how have those partnerships really helped you, and how did you get them?
Thanks so much. I would say, we do have somebody who works for outreach with local businesses near us, so we kind of just go in, tell them about our mission, and because it is something close to the university, because they already get a lot of support from students, this is something that they want to give back to, and I find that's been really, really wonderful for us. And I don't mean to sell ourselves short, but it is a really great thing that the community is so tight-knit, because we usually do work in each university at all of our chapters, as well as our different community chapters. They're always centered around like one town, one area. And I know it's small, but when we're all working together, it is really big. So I think having those little small pocket units is kind of what makes it so tight-knit. And the success of working with the local businesses definitely elevates it by seeing what are people interested in. So if we're having a cleanup with, a frat and a sports team, we're going to get a gift card from a bar. If we're having a cleanup with a sorority and I don't know, like a girls' soccer team, we're gonna get it for a coffee place or also a bar. And I think, that this stuff is really just what works for us, trying to think about who we have there, who's gonna wanna actually engage. The football team's not really gonna wanna do yoga, but we could try. Stuff like that, I think, is what we try to do that makes it more successful, sort of just catering it to our audience.
And I think we had we have a mic back here.
I think, yeah, here I am. Great panel, loved everything I got. I have a whole book full of notes here, and this is exactly what I love about Marco and coming here, because you're sharing these best practices, and we get to bring it back and use them for our own stuff. For Love Blue, great presentation, young ladies. I think, just to follow up on what was said over here, when youth goes out into the community and is asking for partnerships, it's usually a hard yes. So, I would love for you to just think out of the box and where those opportunities are. In fact, forget that there's a box. There is no box. You're just going to have a vision and try to maximize it. But what I wanted to ask was, I also wanted to say that I loved the best practices that you shared. We do a lot of beach cleanups with Balloon Mission. We partner with Atlantic Marine Conservation Society and the DEC. And I loved your ideas for tacking on a competition, and that this gets people excited and inspired. But what I wanted to know, now we know that all trash from land ends up on the ocean. Have you thought about extending your outreach not just to the beaches but to the campus, to do your cleanups on campus where there's, I'm sure, plenty of litter around, or in the communities itself, and then tying that together with, we all know that all trash leads to the ocean and into our stormwater drains, and if we can't get to the beach, we're going to do it right here.
Yeah, so we actually have pretty great facilities that work at Monmouth, and different GIS classes and stuff. We always find one of our assignments is to actually find areas on campus that we can improve environmentally. So there's actually not a lot of litter on campus, I would say, but there is definitely room for that maybe in our communities, and that's definitely something that I think we could look into. And then as far as the streams and the rivers stuff, we haven't thought much about that yet, just because we're still in the stage of growth. So we just started to get a little bit bigger, but we actually talked with one of the gentlemen from Stormwater Solutions, and he was talking to us about their storm traps, and I think that's definitely something we could eventually expand our reach to. But yeah.
All right, we have, someone going to say something? Nope. Okay. We have about 5 more minutes. Do we have time for one more audience question? Because I think there was, okay. Did you still have your question?
I just wanted to point out that I've watched the videos, and I happened upon one. I was searching for, what's been done for marine debris, short form, but then I had to watch all of them because they're so engaging. The character, she's very creative, and that's the thing with these videos is they may have been designed for
Yeah, I think I always say that if a picture's worth 1,000 words, a video's worth about 100,000, 200,000 words. So yeah, they're very impactful.
We have another question.
Sorry. So I have one more question talking about the communication piece of it, which is I work for the Office of Communications for DNREC, Delaware Natural Resources and Environmental Control. So I talked to a couple of you guys throughout the day so far, but just for people that are maybe more science focused rather than communications, if any of you want to talk about your maybe one best practice to, someone was talking about making it simple so that people who are not scientists can understand. And I know having worked with DNREC and before that public health, that is something that people who are experts are not necessarily good at doing, is making it digestible for the average person. So if you could just comment maybe one top tip or something about that.
I'm stealing this from a environmental or science communication group called Compass, but theirs is always think about so what. What's the so what? And it's and understanding that it's different for different people. You don't have an audience, you have audiences, and so each one of those has their own so what. And so when you're thinking about, hey, there's this really, to you it's like, this is amazing, this is unbelievable, groundbreaking stuff. But you have to think about, well, so what's that person going to say, so what? And you have to think about that.
I'll add to that the so what was journalism 101, right? Your lead is supposed to be the so what, the who, what, where, when, how. If people are going to read that one sentence at the top of your article, they should have some sense about what the piece is about or walk away with the most important information. But that thinking applies to everything. And even when I set up a table with the portal, when I was out there before, I had the marine debris layers on and I had it zoomed into Delaware because that is the context where we are, right? That people will probably relate to that most being here. If I'm at Submerge Festival in New York, like I mentioned and had that picture, that day I had the Hudson Canyon and kids could come up and I would tell them, this river right behind you, because we're sitting on the Hudson, used to flow all the way out, to this spot over 100 miles from here, and it cut a Grand Canyon right through the middle. And that just seemed to be a story that related to that place. So just think about what would interest the people who you're talking to. And that can be different from person to person, audience to audience, but just one to absolutely consider at all times.
Yeah, and a lot of people, we sell litter traps, and the question is why a children's book? We manufacture a product that is never going to be sold to a child, but maybe in the future it will be sold. They'll buy it. But our mission was always to engage people into what we see, because Gary lives on a river, our other owner lives on a lake, and we've seen trash our whole lives, in the waterways. And so we're water people, and, if we don't do something other than just build a trap and hope that people buy it, we have to educate and get people involved. So it's always about, awareness and reaching out to people and doing something unexpected. And I think a children's book is just I love children's books because I have a 8-year-old, and it doesn't connect to just him because I'm the one reading it to him when he was younger, my other books. And so it's always about, you're reaching anybody that can touch it. So just think outside of the box of how you can reach out to people around you. And the videos are great, and so it's definitely an asset for a lot of people to reach out beyond just your niche of product or degree.
I would say my top tip is listen to learn. When you're doing stakeholder engagement, don't just glaze over what they're saying. Actually, listen to what they have to say, and you're not just trying to check a box. Oh, I talked to a farmer. We do a lot of work with farmers, and a lot of time what we're asking of them is to, hey, give up some of your land in production for a wetland or for riparian buffers. That's asking a lot of somebody. They're dealing with so many different factors, rising cost of fertilizer and all these things that are affecting their bottom line and their livelihood. So you really have to be really intentional when you're listening to folks like that, when you have a big ask of them. So just like that, building trust through those two-way conversations.
All right, thank you guys so much. We are at 3:01. We did it, guys. If we could give a round of applause to our panelists, thank you.